Hey guys, it's Lynk Plays Games. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Pokemon Leaf Green. So we are getting to an important plot point in this game that I have tried to forget about since the day I found it. And that is the Cubone theories and the lore behind Cubone. So we're gonna get into these theories. Personally, all these theories are very sad in my opinion. I don't know which one I really fall in line with. I am reading as I go with this because I don't have all the details on each theory. I just vaguely know that, one fan theory suggests that Cubone evolves from a Charmander who never had its tail lit. Like when a Charmander hatches from the egg, Charizards get together, have an egg. When that Charmander comes out, it doesn't have its tail ignited. If something happens to the mother Charizard before the tail is lit, then it never becomes a Charmander, it becomes a Cubone. But that, like with most dragons, they protect their offspring, they protect what's theirs. So usually the mother Charizard would be laying near the egg, and the egg would hatch and be by the remains of its mother. I think that's a very plausible theory, and we'll get into it a little bit more. So let me scroll down a little bit. So Cubone doesn't rely on its flame initially, depending on its ground energy. As Cubone matures, it taps into its fire energy, which is explaining its eventual evolution into a fire-type Marowak. I didn't realize Marowak is a fire-type. Huh. This transition implies that Charmanders can survive without their flames, and Cubone represents a stage where they haven't yet tapped into their fire energy, which provides an intriguing perspective on the evolutionary process and relationship between fire-based Pokemon species. Okay. One Reddit user goes even deeper into the theory and outlines the life cycle of Charmander and the creation of Cubone under specific circumstances. According to the theory, Charizards reproduce, leading to the birth of Charmander eggs. Upon hatching, Charmanders rely on their mothers to light their tails, which is crucial for growth and imprinting. Okay. And if a Charmander's mother dies before lighting its tail, it becomes a Cubone, retaining a ground type instead of fire. Basically, everything I just said. Cubones, marked by their tan color and clinging to their mother's skull, have a slower leveling process, evolving into a growth-stunted Marowak at level 28. Marowaks are unable to evolve further due to their unlit tails fused with their mother's skull. I guess it means due to their unlit tails and their head being fused with their mother's skull. Tail lighting by an adoptive Charizard can prevent Cubone syndrome and orphan Charmanders. See, I like that. And as I have, my Charmeleon fighting, interesting timing for that. I love that theory. Only because it does create a diversity in which elements and certain circumstances make a difference in evolutions, which we see with Eevees, and even Pikachu into Raichu. Pikachu's gotta have that Thunderstone to be evolved. But specifically with the Eevee evolutions, if it's at night, Eevee turns into Umbreon. If it's during the day, it's Espeon. Hopefully I don't have that mixed up. But either way, Eevee has very specific things about it that are requirements to be evolved into a different Pokemon. Now, the Cubone and Kanga theory, and yes, I'm gonna say Kanga just to keep from getting absolutely slaughtered by Pokemon fans, but this one theory suggests that Cubone is an abandoned baby Kanga, which is supported by physical similarities and game code and consistent in-game pairings, while others suggest Cubone evolves into Marowak and then into Kanga, and that's also backed by coding evidence and gameplay mechanics. And looking at a picture that it's provided, I could see the similarities. That is very interesting. The popular version of this theory suggests that Cubone is a baby Kanga that wears its deceased mother's skull, with some suggesting that it was intended for Kanga to be the final evolution of Cubone or Marowak. And it's supported by code found in game, possibly indicating an originally planned evolutionary connection. An image comparing baby Kanga with a Cubone highlights their physical similarities, adding more plausibility to the theory. In various Pokemon games, Cubone and Kanga are often found together in the same locations, such as Glittering Caves in Pokemon Y, Rock Tunnel in the second generation, and Route 15 in Generation 5. I believe second generation. I can't remember which game that is, but okay. While it could be seen as circumstantial, the consistent pairing of these two in the wild suggests a deliberate design choice by developers. Okay. The only thing I don't like about that theory is for that to happen. Well, no, because it would make sense that a baby Kanga and then the big Kanga dies. The Cubone gets the skull, turns into a Marowak where the skull fuses, and then maybe the skull breaks when it evolves into a Kanga. That'd be interesting. Or a Kanga is like, you could either get a Marowak or you get a Kanga depending on the circumstance. I could see it. Another theory suggests that Cubone is the first evolution of Kanga, with Marowak evolving into Kanga, completing a 3-stage family. Theory suggests that it may have initially been planned for Marowak. Okay. Evident in the coding for Pokemon Blue and Red, and glitches. Further evidence arises from Pokemon Sun and Moon's call for help mechanic, where Cubone calls for Kanga reinforcements. Huh. Pokemon Company has not confirmed this theory. There is a lot of evidence. That's very interesting. I like that. Only because it is plausible. It does seem to make sense, but I also do think that the Charmander one makes sense too. I don't know, both of them could be very plausible, but the fact that it is seen around Kanga more makes it a little bit more plausible. Oh, and by the way, we got to Lavender Town. Alright. I'm probably gonna end this here. We'll talk about the theory a bit more in the next episode. But that is very interesting. There are other theories, and I will definitely be doing a deeper dive. I'm gonna also talk to everyone around here, see what they got to say. Oh my gosh. This is very interesting. It's so sad, and I'm not ready for it. Like, I'm gonna be crying. Like, how I'm getting through this video without crying, because it's so sad to think of, like, a Pokemon that, like, That just, I don't know, like, how to describe it. I hate that. Like, think about, like, a small animal. Or, like, you know, in that situation. Okay, so they're saying that Lavender Town, the tower is where there are ghosts of Pokemon that Team Rocket killed. That's so sad. And this is, like, really the only time it truly, like, gives reasoning behind ghost-type Pokemons and ghost Pokemon. Though there's not really many ghost Pokemon in the original evolutionary lines. I want to say the original ones were, in fact, Ghastly, Gengar, or Haunter and then Gengar, if I'm not mistaken. But it's so, like... So I guess, technically, in that case, the final evolution of every Pokemon would be a Gengar. Because if a Pokemon dies and becomes a Ghastly, which evolves into a Haunter and then evolves into a Gengar, then that would mean that that's its last evolution. Right? I mean, are we on to a new theory? Is this something I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into and also research? I guess this is how it's gonna go. Alright. I'm trying to think if there's anything that really supports that other than the statement of people thinking that Ghastly are, you know, the deceased Pokemon. Okay, so I did some digging on Pokemon lore about Ghastly and that evolution line. I don't feel like any of it holds true or holds any kind of torch to how well the Cubone theories are. Now, I could see where maybe, like, the spirits being a Ghastly and it could evolve, you know, afterwards. But a lot of people theorize that each of the Pokemon are separate Pokemon that are deceased, which doesn't make sense because the Haunter and the Gengar come from the Ghastly line. But someone said on one of these posts that perhaps, like, the Ghost type and Fairy type have a common ancestor that they descend from, making them evolutionary cousins, which could also be kind of like the Cubone, Charmander, and Kanga theory. They could be evolutionary cousins. Oops, sorry, Hayes. About threw my phone at her. Got butterfingers today. But they think that ghost Pokemon and fairy Pokemon are meant to allude to or represent the yokai in Japanese mythology, which is very interesting take. Yokai have spiritual supernatural powers with shapeshifting being the most common. They mostly possess animal features. Other times they can appear mostly human or like inanimate objects. And as we see in the world of Pokemon, some ghost types look similar to inanimate objects, or in the case of Gengar and Misdreavus, more humanoid. This would also fit with how the Japanese view the yokai. Let's see. Recurrent theme of ghost-type Pokemon stories fitting the narrative of how the story of the yokai is conveyed. In the world of Pokemon, likewise, one of the major themes is duality and balance. Not only does the Pokemon team release a focus on two opposing types of gameplay that balance each other out. Let's see. This is primarily seen with the use of 2 major legendary Pokemon and 3 minor legendary Pokemon per game. The 2 major represents yin and yang. Okay, so this is kind of being off topic. There are very interesting topics that are on Reddit, but someone says, have you ever noticed Cloyster is 91 and Ghastly is 92 in the Pokedex? I mean, yeah, but I wouldn't say that a Cloyster is specifically a Ghastly, or a Ghastly is specifically a Cloyster. Where someone else argues that Ghastly is clearly an Electrode. Gengar is pretty much Clefable. Again, that kind of breaks itself because of the evolutionary lines, but we will get more into theories at another time. I'm definitely going to be doing more research and talking about this. Here we go. This is the part about Cubone's mother. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.